I said 225 of the world's richest people hold more wealth and resources than 3 billion of the world's 6 billion poor people, half the world's population. I shouldn't have said of the world's 6 billion poor people. 6 billion is the overall population of the world, and 3 billion of them are so poor that collectively they hold less wealth than 225 of the world's richest people. Now, here's what's sad about that statistic. What's sad about that number is you can say that number to a lot of people. You can, talk about that statistic. You can announce it. And a lot of people in the world will say, yeah, well, so? In other words, they don't see anything wrong with that. That's just the way it is. What's the problem? What's the problem? But I got to tell you that we're seeing the problem now. When the world's wealth and resources are so disproportionately distributed or held in such wild disproportion, we're not talking about a small disproportion here. We're not talking about a 60-40 split or a 70-30 split or 80-20 split. We're talking about a 99.5% split. That is, 0.5% or less than that holds more wealth than the other 99.9% of the world's people. When the disproportion is skewed that severely, that drastically in one direction, things are, in fact, out of balance. It's a question of balance. It's not a question of right or wrong or what's moral or immoral or any of that, really. It's about, as Conversations with God says, what works and what doesn't work, because there is no right or wrong. There's only what works and what doesn't work. In other words, does this function? Or is this not functional? Is it dysfunctional? I want to suggest to all of you that it might not be functional much longer for so much wealth at such a wild level of disproportion to be held in the hands of so few people, while so many people are suffering beyond anything that even us, you and I, could believe. If we saw how those 3 billion poor people are living, if we actually experienced it on the ground, I think we would immediately move to do something about that. I have actually seen that. I've traveled the world. I've been fortunate enough to travel the world. And I've been to many, many foreign places and other lands, many. And I've been to some of the poorest places on earth, and I've seen people living in conditions that we would find not only unacceptable, but utterly intolerable. A couple of years ago, I was in South Africa. And I recall driving from the airport into the center of town in Johannesburg. And as I was driving in with my driver, had picked us up at the airport, we were doing a lecture there, and some organization had sponsored us in. And the sponsor was kind enough to send a driver to the airport, and we were driving back to town. And on the left-hand side of the car as we were driving into town was this shanty town that we were going by. It was stretched out for many, many city blocks in what is a very, by the way, modern city. Johannesburg is a very modern city. When you get to downtown, it's like New York. It's a very modern city. But on the outskirts of this city, we were going past block after block of, I looked over there and I saw just little shanties made of wood and scrap metal and whatever people could pull together, make a little shelter out of. And I asked my hosts, I said, that's kind of like a shanty town, isn't it? He said, yes, it is. And I could see that not only did it go from left to right as far as the eye could see, many blocks back and many blocks yet to come, but also back that way, inland from where we were driving, almost as far as I could look. It was totally flat ground. So I said to that person, my God, there must be 50,000 people living there. He said, try 3 million. I said, what? What? He said, yeah, there are about 3 million people living in there. And my heart sank. And we talked about the conditions under which they live. Of course, running water is not available in any of those little shanties that they have built up. There are no toilets, of course. There's no heat. They just bring in whatever they can burn, and they cut a little hole in the roof and hope that most of the smoke goes out the hole. What doesn't stays in, and after about 5 years of living like that, you wind up with lung disease and everything else. I mean, it's just not to be believed. And there's no playground or school of any kind. I mean, it's just what it is. It's not even really a slum area like the slums of New York or the so-called slums of Los Angeles. This is 5 levels beneath that. This is living in a tin or wooden shelter, sometimes cardboard. That's not a whole lot bigger than this living room for the whole family. No electricity, none of that. So there you are. And 3 million people living that way, and that was just in Johannesburg. Forget about the rest of the world. Now, when you drive by something like that, of course, I said to the driver, "Stop! You got to stop. I want to walk. I want to walk through. I want to experience it on the ground." He said, "No, you don't want to do that. Not the way you're dressed. Don't go in there." I said, "What will they hurt me? Will they try to rob me?" He said, "No. They're not bad people. They won't hurt you or try to rob you." He said, I don't think so. But the feeling, the anger, the hatred, the envy, just the frustration that you will engender just walking through there in your, $250 alligator shoes. He said, I wouldn't do that. If you want to go through there, let's go to the Army surplus store and just get you some sneakers and a pair of jeans and an overshirt and, at least, I'm not going to say dress down, but don't go in there wearing that suit, They'll think you're from the government and they'll start running. They'll want to know what's going on, What official agency do you represent? Because only government people could dress that well. So we didn't stop. We didn't go in. But I could feel enough of the energy just coming across the highway. Now, I spent a few minutes here describing this because I want you to know that that's not the only place in the world that I've seen those kinds of conditions. I've seen it in many, many places. I share with you one example because I have traveled the world. I've been to Ouagadougou, I've been to Machu Picchu, I've traveled the world. I'm humbled to say, because this wonderful message that's come through me has received attention around the world and people have invited me to go and share it in person.